Hi YouTube, Brian Phillips here again. Part 5. Horizon Hobby Cessna 182 UMX Flaps Mod Series. And what we're up to now is just getting this pin redone. Cut a piece of this smaller wire. So we're going to work out the temporary one here. Should be pretty easy. Just kind of crappy wire, so I don't want to have this whole system riding on a junky wire. Okay, so we let that down. This is significantly higher quality wire. It's a lot harder to bend too. Let's see if I can get an approximate thickness. Yeah, that ought to be about, wow, I can barely bend it. I have to use tools for this. So we're just going to make that a little bit of U shape to it, and then we'll fold it back on top of itself. Okay. So hopefully that'll fit through. Okay, yep, it does. Now that needs to be on the outside. Maybe I can use these forceps to help. This piece needs to be on the outside, like that. Okay. If it went easy, I would think there was something weird going on. Okay, so it's through. There's a million ways to skin this particular cat, but I think what I'm going to have to do, probably along the lines of trying to just finish the fold, but I'm having a heck of a time even getting this through. Just weird. The thing that's nice about forceps is you can clamp onto whatever it is you're trying to hold. The trouble is if the thing is still too small, it'll still slip, so you get a really weak bite. And if you buy cheap forceps like I did here, then they don't bite that great anyway. You're kind of screwed either way. You gotta do surgery to get this stuff to go together. Okay, I'm holding on really tight this time. I do not want to do that again. I just need something with teeth like this. Yes, got it. Okay. So now that we're through, I want to rotate it around and just try to kind of fold it in if I can get it to bite. This is an awkward spot. There's no getting around that. You always got to be super careful when you're working with heavier tools like this, because if you drop them, you'll for sure damage something. May not be an important something, but it'll usually look bad at least. Jeez. You can kind of see the problem I'm having now, guys. Okay, so I'm going to get a better pair of pliers. Hopefully these ones with a thicker nose will work better. So far, not really working too much better. I do feel a little better about this steel. I think it's going to hold up a lot better. Just a pain in the butt to work with. But that's kind of the trade-off. You want it to be a pain in the butt to work with, because that means it's not going to come undone. Okay. So I'd really like to fold that over so it's about touching itself. I may have to take out the big guns here. These things will still pivot on me though, because they're crappy pliers too. See, like I'm talking about, I was really lucky the way that fell, because it fell around the whole thing. Well, that felt like it was bending. Now, whatever method you use to hold this together, just make sure that the method is undoable to a certain extent. There may come a time when you gotta undo this again. Hopefully it's not tonight. See, it won't easily flip in there now, at least, which is great. That's what I'm kind of going for. I just wish there was a way to hold on to it a little better and get it twisted. Okay, I'm going to get this straightened out here. I'm going to try these flat-nosed, a little thicker. See if I can get that bend with these. Yeah, it feels like it's getting a little bend on it. Yes. Okay. Now I just got to try to get one more bend in here. Remember, it's not just about this joint, guys. It's about not catching other stuff with the hook shape. Look at that, we got a closed ring now. So it's not going to come undone and it's not going to come off, because even if it spins, it's still going to be there. Now, one thing I got to do additionally is, you see how that thing was allowed to fall down? It would be nice if I could bite this with this tool and stop that from falling down at all, or being able to. So just getting a sharp edge on it could slow that option down. And the other thing I could do is I could take a little bit of CA and build up a ledge, which is probably what we're going to end up doing. Be careful if you're using non-foam safe like I'm going to do here. It could be devastating if it drips onto the foam, but it's worth the risk because you're going to have a little bit better adhesion on the metal, a little faster cure. Okay, so the way this works is pretty simple. We're just trying to build a little ledge. Just got to hold this up. You don't want to get it into the actual area where it's going to be moving. So we're just getting a little drip and a little kicker. You know what? This kicker could screw us up. So I'm going to do something a little different. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it this way today. Put it into a cotton swab. Okay? Because if we get it on our tape that's holding all that stuff down, it will be weak. See, it touched the side of the plastic, which is what I was trying to avoid. But luckily, that stuff's like non-stick Teflon. So it'll break free. So we got a little kicker on the edge there. We got a little kicker there. Okay, so that little cotton is going to stick in there. And that's going to stop it from slipping around the edge now, I hope. So now we just need to test the movement, the action before we move on. So we'll put that back where it belongs. Discard of that. Get these put back away so they're out of the way. Okay, so we're gonna kick on the radio. Throttle cuts on. Don't need to worry about this. These were in case we decided to get rid of that plastic connector. So these little wires can be kept for cleaning out tips of glue. Okay, radio's on. We're going to let this initiate save. Okay. But you wouldn't, I guess, technically have to wait for the save to initiate because it's on a different receiver. Everything's working. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the flap system. No, we'll wait and do that later. Okay. A lot more solid now. Really like the action. There's one thing I'm not liking. And this shouldn't be a practical, it shouldn't be an issue for us in real life, but in the testing setup that we have now, the configuration we're running for testing this all, the flaps are allowed to bend this, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. See how it's pulling down? That's unacceptable. This is unacceptable. Now, partly it's unacceptable because we get to a certain point where we're no longer pulling the right direction. So we have to resolve that right now. But now that we know the way the action's going to work, we can get it done right. And before we were just guessing and trying our best. And we did pretty good. We got close. So now we have to get it right. and that means we're going to have to probably get some tape. We may even have to do a little bit of CA and some cotton, which is a good way of doing this step. In fact, that might be what I end up doing. Tape is nice, but tape is sort of a temporary thing. I don't know. I'm torn. This is the decisions I hate making all the time, but you got to do it. So, okay, so I'm going to take and cut just a little bit of this paper towel, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this little bridge. Okay, and this bridge is going to go right here, and it's going to hold that stuff against the foam. Okay, just like that. The only difference is it's going to be quite a bit stronger than what we had going before, and we're going to have kicker ready to go, but we just got to be real careful about the kicker, because we don't want to get kicker all over the tape that we intend to keep. We can tape here, by the way, and it would work to help stop it from pulling like it's pulling right now. The trouble is, it's still, you're asking a lot of a piece of tape. At some point, that stuff is going to also be held in place by the piece of plastic where we cut a notch. Okay? So for now, there's a piece of tape here, and this piece of tape goes down on the bottom of the flap mechanism. And then we basically get straight into the where this thing mounts onto the top of the fuselage. So we have to be real careful and mindful of that. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're probably going to go ahead and get some glue down to make a bed of glue. Lick my finger, and you can kind of get that to stick to your finger. Okay, so now I want to take this thick CA, medium thick, and just get a little bit of it here and a little bit of it here. Now you could use a different product if you decided you wanted to, and that's fine if you decide you want to do that. But I've found that the CA works really nice for this. And you're not going to hopefully have to redo this in terms of like reconstituting. You shouldn't have to reattach this stuff. This stuff is pretty much where it's going to be. And that one little piece where it's going to bond to the glue, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not going to hurt anything, because it will only bond, and then we'll break it free on the first motion, the first action. One kiss a kicker. And just don't overdo it. If you overdo it, you'll cause problems for yourself. Okay, so now we're going to come back in here and just put another layer of kicker on top, which is going to harden it. And then we just hope we got far enough over. Now you see that little piece of cotton there? That's perfect. I really want to put some more CA on there. And that CA is going to prevent this from ever tipping. Oh shoot, I dripped in on the window. Not the end of the world, but still. There's just one little strand of cotton there. I don't know if you guys can make it out. There's one little strand of cotton that I keep riding the glue onto. The CA. Awesome. Okay, one little spritz of CA. We should be good. Okay, so now that's foam safe stuff too, so. Alright, so now we need to let that set for just a second. See how it moves? Okay, so we need to slow down our action a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this to 2 seconds now. So we're going to go down to 2 seconds. And then we're going to go into servo setup. And we're going to change the we don't want to pull any harder than we have to get the job done. Because right now we're pulling it and we're just pulling it down and we're not doing anything. Okay? Well, that's no good. Just noticing that I'm at 0. I mean, in real life, they would only go to 40 degrees total, so if we're going down to like 90 degrees, that's more than we need to go anyway. It's just the problem is you don't want to have to depend on going past the 100%. So if I set this to 100 and 100, a little less wear and tear on the servo, and all I have to do is just reposition this control, which we're going to try to do now. Now that we kind of have things getting set where they go. So now this is hard now, and now we need to eventually do that over here too. But right this exact second, we're going to go ahead and take this off, and we're going to move it. And this will really help the function. I'd really like to maybe put just a little bit of CA so we're not totally dependent on that double-sided tape, but you saw how that protected us because we were allowed to play past where we should have been. Okay. Okay, so that's our middle setting, and that really needs to be the end of the stroke almost. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this off. Now, if I would have known that in time, then I could have moved in a hole. But really, I don't know that would have been real plausible to have known that ahead of time. Okay, so now we're actually past where we need to be. So there's our takeoff and our landing setting. And see, it's wanting to pull the wing. Why is it pulling the wing anyway? That's kind of weird. I think it might just be changing the center of gravity because it's just tipping it over finally. Okay, so now we need to do this thing, except we need to do it over here, which is going to help to kind of shore up everything in terms of making it strong. Now I got to decide if I want to try to cut back my flap. Okay, so that's 80% out. It's kind of a disappointment there, because I'd like to see it be able to come down some more. I mean, even though I'm probably never going to run it that far down. Okay, so now we need to back this down. Just until the flaps start. Okay. So we're at, let's just go 75 to 75. Okay. You go a little bit less even. And part of it is we just have a little bit more play here that we could take out. But some of that will happen when we do this other side now. So let's do that. I think we have the right position on the servo now. So I can go ahead and get this screw back in. I hate that noise when you're working on a real light duty servo. It's got those nylon, almost like a nylock you're tightening. Okay, awesome. Okay, very good. So now, let's get this side done. Obviously, we're going to leave everything running for this step. So we need a piece that's about that wide. And we need it to be as long as we can make it fit. So we don't need it quite that big. That's just a little overkill. And then kind of got that texture pattern on there. So you want to flatten this out a little bit. That'll help a little bit for better bonding. Okay, so once we get this wire, actually can be pulled through if it'll pull, which my guess is it won't. Yeah, it's not going to pull through. I kind of want it out of the way at this point though, so I'm going to go ahead and undo this tape. Once the tape gets undone, then we can go ahead and get this stuff routed back properly. Okay, so remember this was just that real temporary thing we threw on there to kind of hold things in place. Okay, so now that's finally out of there. A lot of these temporary things coming out is just such a good feeling when you got all this time and effort in this. And we'll just actually, that worked pretty good with the clear tape, so we'll just do that again. If you wanted to try to make it prettier, if you knew all the exact steps you were going to take, then you could conceivably, you know, put some heat shrink or something around it, but that would be a pretty tough thing to get all right. You know what else I could just do is a couple zip ties too. I just don't think the zip ties are gonna work as good, because this way, if we run into that with any of our action, it's just gonna slip off of it because the tape is slick. And zip ties are maybe a little bit heavier too. Okay, so I got this tape all the way around and it doubled on itself. That's perfect. Okay, so now that makes it really strong too. So now that we have that out of the way, go ahead and lift this, try to get out of the propeller. Now at some point we got to figure out where we're going to put this, but we're not there yet, so let's deal with that here in a little bit. Let's get this taping done. And you can see that worked pretty good temporarily, you know, that little solution we came up with. But it's not really a permanent thing, unless you're really trying to build a piece of crap. Okay, so look at how much more surface area we're going to get out of that. So much better. You want to keep it tight to the area that's working. You know, the only problem is I think I might want to go this way, because I can see kind of where the adhesive was. Yeah, that should work pretty good because we have a little more area to work with. Okay, so I'm going to get some glue going, some CA. Okay, now we don't want that to CA the wire to the actual frame. And if it does, we'll break it free. Mechanically, we'll just use... Oh, son of a gun. I didn't want that to fall in there. I normally don't like to get my fingers all over this stuff for a variety of reasons, which I've discussed in other videos. But, it's not the end of the world if you do. You can use acetone to get this stuff off. It's really hot right now. Like I can tell it's chemically reacting. Okay, now remember tape. It's not our friend right now, the CA and kicker. The kicker especially. Okay, now I'm going to go just above this joint here where the paper contact's there. I'll grab a Q-tip. I'm going to just wipe that CA down on top of there, on the surface. Now I'm going to take some CA and coat the top of that piece there. And just basically using, this is probably not showing up well on camera because I can barely see it here, live and in charge, you know. So I'm just spreading that CA into the fibrous material. And we're going to let that sit up for just a second while we get the tip cleaned. Alright, now this might bind pretty bad, so let's try it. Oh no, it's working. Perfect. Was it bending the wing? Yeah, it's trying to bend the wing a little bit. No big deal. So far so good. I'm real happy with the way that turned out. Actually, I'd kind of like to squeeze some CA into that side too, but I don't think we'll get so lucky. And truthfully, we could probably put a piece of tape over this whole piece here, which would help if some water would get splashed up on there, like when we add floats and things back on this. You know, if we go out and fly off the water, which we've done a couple of times. It's pretty cool, this thing flying off water. Now, if you guys didn't already hear me say this 14 times, you don't need flaps on this plane, obviously. It flies good, it flies slow. But goodness gracious, how much cooler is this thing going to be flying with flaps? Nice and solid. See, it's just kind of, what it's doing is, it's really wanting to just, we're running out of length on the linkage.